The city skyline blurred past my window, all steel and glass, shimmering in the dawn light like a promise I'd never keep. My tie hung loose around my neck, my collar unbuttoned. The night with Vanessa had ended hours ago, but her perfume still clung to my skin like a secret. I should have felt invincible. After all, I was Julian Vance, tech millionaire, boardroom shark, the man who always had a plan. But as I gripped the steering wheel, that familiar gnawing at the edges of my mind returned. Guilt, don't be weak, I muttered to myself. My voice sounded foreign in the hush of the car. Vanessa's smile floated in my memory, sharp, knowing. She'd draped herself across the hotel bed like a trophy. Every time she laughed, I felt something dark stir inside me, like I'd won, like I'd beaten the world at its own game. But now, alone in the car, the glow of victory faded. My reflection in the rearview mirror was drawn, pale. The city lights blurred together, familiar but cold. I remembered the way she'd looked at me as I slipped out of the room, like she knew this was only part of a bigger game. "Don't forget me," she'd whispered, voice low and dangerous. "Forget her. Impossible. If this story resonated with you, hit like, spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from." The guilt twisted deeper, a blade in my gut. I pictured Alana, my wife at home, maybe still asleep, hand on her growing belly. The memory of her smile, softer than Vanessa's, crept in like a knife under my ribs. I'd told myself it was over, that Vanessa was a one-time mistake. But that was a lie. One night had become 2, then 3. Now I couldn't escape. I pulled into a gas station, my hands trembling. The smell of gasoline and burnt coffee hit me like a slap. I stood there, staring at the pumps, wondering what the hell I'd become. Man in a tailored suit, married, with a mistress and a lie. I leaned against the car, my breath fogging the window. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Vanessa. Last night was unforgettable. I shoved it back into my pocket, bile rising in my throat. The guilt wasn't enough to stop me. As I drove away, the skyline stretched before me, a jungle of glass and steel. My kingdom. My prison. I'd thought I was untouchable, but even kings fall, and I had a feeling mine was just beginning. I pushed open the front door and stepped into the silence I'd grown used to. My kingdom empty, but tonight it wasn't. She was there. Alana, sitting at the kitchen table, back straight, eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. Her hair was pulled back, but a few strands clung to her cheek. She looked so small in that huge room. "Alana." My voice cracked, sharp. "What are you doing up?" She didn't answer. Instead, her eyes locked on mine. Calm, steady. The kind of look that turned my stomach. A manila envelope rested in front of her. I took a step closer. "What's this?" Her hand, the one not cradling her belly, reached out and slid the envelope across the table. She didn't flinch when it hit my hand. My fingers shook as I pulled the flap open. Divorce papers, my name at the top, hers at the bottom. My heart dropped into my stomach. "Alana, wait." She shook her head, a slow, deliberate motion. "No, Julian," she whispered. "I've been waiting long enough." The kitchen felt like it was closing in on me. I reached for her hand, but she pulled it back and placed it protectively over her stomach. "You're pregnant," I stammered, voice hoarse. I thought we were okay. I thought." Her laugh was small, humorless. "You thought I was too weak to leave," she said. "Too dependent, too scared." Tears welled in my eyes. "It's not like that." Her gaze hardened. "Don't lie to me, Julian. I know about Vanessa. I know everything." My breath caught. How?" She leaned forward, eyes like steel. "I know enough to know that every time you were late, every time you smelled like perfume that wasn't mine, every time you flinched when I touched you, it was her." The words sliced through me like glass. I reached for her again, desperate. "Alana, please, I can fix this, I can." She shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. "No, Julian. You can't fix what's already broken. The baby moved. Inside her, a silent reminder of what I'd thrown away. I dropped my hand, the papers crumpling in my grip. She stood slowly, hand on her belly, her back straight. This baby deserves better than a father who cheats. I deserve better. She walked past me without looking back, her perfume a final memory. And just like that, I was alone. The silence returned, louder than ever. I remember our first kiss. The way Alana's lips tasted like hope. I remember the way her laughter made the air around us feel alive. Back then, I thought I could give her the world. It was a small ceremony, just close family, a rented hall, and Alana's mother's old veil. She looked so radiant that day, like nothing could ever break her. Or us. But that was before the money, before the investors, before the endless nights of phone calls and board meetings, before the dinners with billionaires who taught me how to hide my sins behind a smile. She was waiting at home, always waiting. I'd come through the door with my suit still sharp, my smile still intact. She'd run to me, wrap her arms around me like I was still her world, and for a moment I believed I could be. Then came the promotions, the expansions, the deals that turned me from a man into a brand. I'd stand in front of 100 people and talk about innovation and progress, while my wife sat alone at a table for two. She never complained. Not at first. She'd ask me about my day, try to touch my arm. I'd flinch, make excuses, talk about meetings I didn't want to remember. Her eyes would cloud over, but she'd smile anyway. I told myself I was doing it for us, for our future. But the truth is, I liked the way power felt. I liked the way people looked at me, the respect, the envy. I started to crave it more than her touch. Nights turned into weeks, weeks into months. One day I came home and found her crying in the kitchen. She said I'd become a stranger, that I looked at her like she was an obligation instead of a partner. Told her she was being dramatic, that I was building something important. She whispered, "And what about us?" I didn't have an answer. The cracks widened after that. I started staying late at the office. I started spending time at bars after meetings. I told myself it was normal, that every successful man needed a release. I saw the way she watched me leave, the hope fading from her eyes. But I didn't stop. And then Vanessa happened. I told myself she was different, that she understood my world, that she was just a distraction. But every time I touched her, I thought of the way Alana used to smile at me. I tried to convince myself that Alana didn't need me anymore, that she was strong enough to handle it, that I'd been a good husband once, but every time I closed my eyes I saw the way she used to look at me, the way I'd loved her once. And now, standing in this empty house, the papers still fresh in my hands, I realized that love wasn't just a memory. It was a promise I'd broken long before I met Vanessa. And maybe that was the real betrayal. I sat in the bar, staring at the bottom of my whiskey glass, watching the ice melt like the last remains of my dignity. Vanessa's voice replayed in my head, sharp and smooth like a blade. "You look like hell, Julian," she'd said, sliding into the booth opposite me. Her red dress clung to her curves like a threat. I'd tried to look away, but she leaned forward, her perfume intoxicating, her eyes locked on mine. "You think you can just disappear on me?" she asked, voice low but cutting. I tried to sound strong. "You were a mistake," I muttered. She laughed, a slow, dangerous sound. "Mistakes don't usually come with bank transfers and hotel suites," she whispered. "But I guess you forgot that part." I clenched my fists under the table. "What do you want, Vanessa?" Her smile vanished. "I want what you promised me," she snapped. "Protection, money, access. You think, I don't know about your company's offshore accounts, the bribes, the shell companies." My stomach lurched. "How?" She leaned back, a predator toying with her prey. "You made a lot of enemies, Julian," she said. "You're not as discreet as you think." My hands trembled. "You're bluffing." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. Am I? I stared at it like it might explode. I have emails, Julian, she said. Bank records, photos, the kind of evidence that would make the board toss you out and the DA come knocking. I swallowed, my throat dry as dust. Why are you doing this? I whispered. She laughed again, softer this time, but no less lethal. Because I can, she said. Because you thought I was just a pretty face in a bar. Because you thought you could use me and toss me aside. I pressed my palms against the table, the wood cool and unforgiving. What do you want? Her eyes gleamed. Half, she said. Half of everything. Cash, assets, shares, or I go public. My breath caught. You can't, she cut me off. Try me. The bar felt like it was closing in, the air thick with smoke and betrayal. You'd ruin both of us, I said, voice shaking. She smiled, leaning forward. No, Julian. I'd ruin you. I'd survive. I tried to find the man I used to be. The one who'd built empires with his bare hands. But all I saw was the man who'd destroyed his own family. Her smile widened, like she could see the battle inside me. I'll give you 24 hours, she said. After that, the flash. Drive goes to the press. She slid out of the booth, her red dress trailing behind her like a warning. As she walked away, I felt the walls close in. For the first time in my life, I wasn't in control. The mansion felt colder than usual as I pulled into the driveway. The sky was a bruised purple, the streetlights painting long shadows across the stone path. Every step felt heavy, like I was walking into a battle I couldn't win. Alana was waiting in the kitchen, the divorce papers still on the table. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot, her face pale but determined. The baby bump beneath her sweater seemed more pronounced now, a reminder of everything I'd risked. She didn't look up when I walked in. She just stared at the envelope like it held the truth she'd waited too long to say. Alana, I said, my voice raw. We need to talk. Her eyes met mine, calm and unwavering. Talk? She echoed. Now you want to talk? I took a deep breath. I know I messed up. But Vanessa, she's blackmailing me. Stop, she said sharply, holding up a hand. I don't want to hear about her. I've heard enough. I flinched. You knew? Her laugh was brittle. Julian, I'm not an idiot. The late nights, the perfume, the way you stopped looking at me like I mattered. She pressed a hand to her belly, her voice trembling. I knew. Why didn't you say something? I asked, my voice a broken whisper. She shook her head, tears gathering in her eyes. Because of him, she said, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. Because I couldn't risk the stress. Because I didn't want our baby to feel the weight of your betrayal before he even took his first breath. My heart cracked. Alana, She wiped a tear from her cheek. Don't, she whispered. Don't say you're sorry, you've said that before. The silence between us stretched, thick and heavy. I wanted to believe you'd come back to me, she said finally, her voice like a ghost. I wanted to believe that the man I married was still in there somewhere. But every time I looked at you, I saw her in your eyes. I reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't, she repeated. It's too late. I dropped my hand, feeling the weight of everything I'd lost. I still love you, I said, my voice shaking. Her eyes softened, just for a moment. Maybe, she whispered. But love without trust is just a lie we tell ourselves. She turned away then, leaving me alone with the papers, the empty kitchen, and the echo of her words. And in that moment, I realized the truth. I had built my empire on secrets, and now, every one of them was coming back to destroy me. The whiskey burned as it slid down my throat, each gulp a small attempt to silence the voice in my head, the voice that told me I was a coward, a liar, a fraud. The boardroom blurred before me, faces merged with shadows. I could barely hear their voices over the pounding in my skull. Julian, are you okay? Someone asked, but I couldn't tell. Who? I nodded too quickly, feeling the sweat bead at my temple. Fine, I muttered, even as my hands shook under the table. The word fine was a lie. Vanessa's threats echoed in my mind. One click, Julian. One click and everything you built is gone. She'd sent me another message last night, a video clip, just a glimpse of the files she'd saved, my offshore accounts, my secret deals, everything. I deleted it, but the damage was done. Alana's voice, too, haunted me. Love without trust is just a lie. I pressed the heel of my hand to my forehead, but the guilt wouldn't go away. Neither would the fear. I stumbled out of the boardroom, ignoring the concerned looks, the whispers. My vision swam as I reached the elevator. Down, down, down. The doors opened. I stepped out, the lobby spinning. Vanessa's face hovered in every reflection, every glass surface. Her smile, a weapon. I own you now, she'd said. I staggered into my office, slamming the door behind me. Papers littered the desk, contracts and reports I couldn't focus on. My phone buzzed again. I jumped. Another text. No name. Just an address and a time. I threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall, screen splintering like my sanity. I pressed my hands to my temples, breath ragged. My mind felt like it was splitting open, pieces of me scattered across the floor. You thought you could control everything, Vanessa's voice whispered in my memory, but you can't even control yourself. I grabbed the nearest bottle, poured another drink, hands trembling so badly I nearly missed the glass. I downed it in one gulp, the burn mixing with the bitterness of failure. Images flashed. Alana's tears. Vanessa's smirk. My baby's future. I was losing everything. I slammed my fist onto the desk, papers scattering like dead leaves. My reflection in the darkened window stared back, haunted, broken. I whispered to the empty room, I'll fix this. But even I didn't believe it. I found it by accident, buried under the passenger seat. A hotel keycard with a gold emblem like a secret screaming at me. The car was still warm from his touch, the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. I held the card between my fingers, its smooth plastic cold against my skin. Vanessa's game, I thought. I'd seen her name on the divorce papers. I'd seen the way Julian flinched every time I mentioned her. I should have just thrown the keycard away, pretended I'd never found it. But something inside me, something that had been dormant for too long, refused to stay silent. I pocketed the card, my hands trembling. My heart pounded as I drove to the address on the back. The hotel was sleek and modern, all chrome and glass. The lobby gleamed under the cold glow of chandeliers. The elevator ride was an eternity, each floor number lighting up like a countdown. Room 412. I stood there, hand hovering over the door. 1,000 doubts clawed at me, but I couldn't stop. I slid the card into the lock. A soft click. Inside, the air smelled of perfume and expensive liquor. A red dress lay draped across a chair like a discarded warning. Papers littered the desk. Bank. Statements, photos. My husband's name scrawled across a crumpled contract. I sifted through them, each sheet a dagger to my chest. Transfers, offshore accounts, payments marked Vanessa, and then I saw it. A note, handwritten, almost delicate in its cruelty. Julian, don't think you can get rid of me so easily. I have everything, and if you don't pay up, the whole world will know. I pressed the paper to my chest, breath ragged. Tears blurred the ink. How many nights had I stayed up hoping he'd come back to me? How many times had I believed his lies? The baby kicked, a soft reminder that this wasn't just about me anymore. I gathered the papers, my hands shaking. I shoved them into my purse, the weight of betrayal heavier than anything I'd ever carried. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, pale, determined. No more waiting, I thought. No more tears. Julian had played his game. Now it was my turn. I didn't even knock. I pushed the door open, my heart pounding in my chest, the keycard burning a hole in my purse. Julian was at his desk, head in his hands, the room reeking of whiskey and desperation. He looked up startled, eyes bloodshot. "Alana," he croaked, his voice rough. I tossed the keycard onto his desk like it was a grenade. "Explain this," I demanded, my voice trembling with rage. He stared at the card, his face draining of color. Where did I get it?" I spat. "You left it in the car, Julian, careless even for you." His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I pulled the note from my purse and slammed it down beside the card. "Don't think you can get rid of me so easily," I read aloud, my voice shaking. "I have everything, and if you don't pay up, the whole world will know." His hands trembled. "Alana, it's not what I think." I snapped. "She's blackmailing you, and you were going to pay her off with money that should have gone to our family, to our child." He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," he mumbled. My voice cracked. "Then what did you mean, Julian? Because I can't even look at you right now." He lifted his head, his eyes red and hollow. "Vanessa. She found out about something. Something from years ago. A deal I made to keep the company afloat. It was supposed to be buried, but she dug it up. She threatened to ruin everything." I froze. "What deal?" His jaw clenched. "A competitor. I bribed an official to shut down their project. It wasn't legal, but I had to protect the company." Tears stung my eyes. "You had to protect the company? What about us, Julian? What about our child?" He shook his head, eyes wild. "I thought I was doing it for us, for our future." I stepped back, disgusted. "Don't you dare put this on me. You made those choices. You let her in, and now you want me to just... What? Forgive you?" He reached for me, desperation in his eyes. "Alana, please. I swear I never meant for you to get hurt." I slapped his hand away. "You already hurt me, Julian. Every time you chose her over us. Every time you chose your company over your family." His shoulders slumped, the weight of his own betrayal pressing him down. "I'm sorry," he whispered, but the words sounded empty. I wiped my tears, my voice cold. "Sorry isn't enough." I turned and walked away, my heart pounding in my chest. Behind me, I heard his breath hitch, a silent scream of regret. But I didn't look back, because I wasn't his anymore. I barely remembered the drive to her penthouse. My mind was a blur of betrayal and fear. Alana's tears haunted me, but Vanessa's smirk was the final nail in my coffin. The elevator ride felt like a slow descent into hell. I pounded on the door, my heart hammering in my chest. She answered like she'd been expecting me, wearing a silk robe that matched the color of fresh blood. Her lips curled into a smile. "Julian," she purred, stepping aside to let me in. "Vanessa," I snapped, pushing past her into the living room. The place reeked of expensive perfume and deceit. "This ends tonight." She sauntered to the bar, poured herself a drink, and leaned back against the counter like a queen. "So dramatic," she sighed. "You always did like the hero act." I clenched my fists. "Cut the games. I want the flash drive. I want everything you have on me now." She took a slow sip, her eyes never leaving mine. "You think it's that easy?" she asked, voice dripping with amusement. "Give it to me," I growled. "I'm done with your blackmail." She laughed, a cold, hollow sound that made my blood freeze. "Oh, Julian," she said, setting her glass down. "You still don't get it, do you?" She pulled a small device from her purse and waved it at me. "Every word you said, every promise you broke, every time you touched me, I recorded it all." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. You recorded me?" She nodded, her smile widening. "Every time, every text, every call." My chest tightened. "You can't..." She stepped closer, eyes gleaming. "I can, and I will, unless you give me what I want." I swallowed hard. "What do you want?" She brushed a finger down my tie, slow and deliberate. Control, she whispered. I want controlling shares in your company. I want your empire, Julian. The one you built on lies and betrayal. My head spun. You're insane. She laughed again, low and dark. No, Julian, I'm smart. I played the game you taught me, and now it's my turn to win. I tried to find the man who'd always had an answer, but I came up empty. She leaned, in close, her breath hot against my ear. You have 24 hours, give me what I want or I make the world hate you. She stepped back, her eyes dancing with victory. I staggered to the door, every step heavier than the last. As it closed behind me, her laughter followed me like a curse. The lawyer's office smelled like stale coffee and old books. I sat across from her, Ms. Delacroix, a kind woman with sharp eyes, my hands folded over my growing belly. She pushed the final set of papers toward me. Mrs. Vance, she said softly, once you sign these, it's done. No turning back. I stared at the stack of legal words, the lines and boxes that would end a marriage built on broken promises. My pen felt heavy in my hand. Take your time, she said, but I shook my head. I'd spent too long waiting already. My heart ached for the man I thought I'd married, the man who held my hand on our wedding day and whispered forever. But that man had disappeared behind boardrooms, power, and lies. Julian's empire was crumbling now. Vanessa's threats, his desperation. I'd seen it all in his eyes. I took a breath, steadying myself. Will the baby be protected? I asked, my voice quiet but strong. Ms. Delacroix nodded. Your prenup ensures the child's future is secure. Julian's assets will provide for them. He can't touch that. I closed my eyes for a moment, picturing the tiny kicks inside me, the promise of a future I had to build alone. When I opened my eyes, they were dry. No more tears. I signed the first page, then the second, then the third. Each signature felt like a small death. When I finished, I set the pen down and exhaled. It's done, I whispered. Ms. Delacroix gave me a sad smile. You're stronger than you think, she said, gathering the papers. I nodded, my hand resting on my belly. I have to be, I replied, because love without trust was just a lie we told ourselves, and I wasn't telling myself that lie anymore. I pushed open the front door, and the silence hit me like a slap. The marble floors, the high ceilings, the artwork on the walls, it all felt like a museum of my own failures. I walked through the house, each step echoing in the emptiness. Her laughter used to fill these halls. Now it was just me, and the ghosts of every lie I'd ever told. The whiskey bottle on the counter called to me, but I ignored it. Even the burn couldn't wash away the poison in my veins. My phone buzzed on the table. Another notification. Another headline. Scandal. Tech tycoon's mistress. Exposes his secret crimes. Video evidence released. I grabbed the phone, my hands shaking. Vanessa's face filled the screen. Her voice dripped with venom as she recounted every secret, every dirty deal. Behind her, the city lights flickered like dying stars. She'd done it. She'd won. The stock market opened and my empire began to crumble. Board members called. Investors threatened lawsuits. Friends vanished. The living room felt smaller than it ever had. The furniture, once a symbol of my success, now looked cheap and fake, just like me. I sat on the couch, the weight of the house, pressing on my chest. Every decision, every betrayal had led to this. I thought about Alana, her face cold and resolute as she signed those papers. I'd seen the strength in her eyes, the strength I'd once promised to protect. A single tear slipped down my cheek. I didn't wipe it away. The TV flickered in the corner, Vanessa's voice filling the room. She listed my crimes like trophies. Bribery. Fraud. Blackmail. I turned it off. I wandered down the hallway, past the nursery we'd once painted together. The pale blue walls looked gray in the half-light. A stuffed bear sat on the shelf, untouched, waiting for a child who would never call this place home. I pressed my forehead to the wall, the cool paint soothing my burning skin. I'd traded everything for power, and now I had nothing. The doorbell rang. A manila envelope waited on the step. Summons. Vanessa's final move. I picked it up, my hands trembling. The weight of the paper felt like a death sentence. I carried it back to the living room, dropping it on the coffee table like a confession. I sank into the couch, the house groaning around me, every creak a reminder of my sins. I had built this empire on lies and betrayal, and now the ashes were all I had left. The sun cast long shadows across the empty street as I stood outside the coffee shop where I used to meet Alana for lunch on Fridays. She was inside, her belly round with our child, her eyes glowing with a strength I'd never given her. Through the window I saw her laugh with a friend, her hair loose, her smile free. She didn't look at me. I turned away, hands deep in my pockets. My empire was gone. The board had voted me out. Investors had abandoned me. And the media had devoured me like carrion. All I had left were memories, and the guilt that never slept. I used to think power meant control, that if I just worked hard enough, manipulated enough, lied enough, I could own the world. But all I owned now was the silence of my own mistakes. I wandered through the city, the buildings towering over me like judges. Every reflection in the glass showed a man I didn't recognize, hollow, broken, alone. Vanessa had vanished after the scandal, her threats fulfilled, her demands met. She'd taken half of what I'd built and left me to pick up the pieces. And Alana, she'd rebuilt herself. I'd heard through mutual friends that she'd bought a small house in the suburbs, a garden, a future. I never called, never showed, because I'd already taken enough from her. I found a bench across from her new place. It was small, cozy, filled with flowers she'd always wanted to plant. I watched her there, sitting on the porch with our child in her arms, a little boy with her eyes and my stubborn jaw. He laughed as she bounced him on her knee, his smile untainted by the sins of his father. My chest tightened. She deserved this. They both did. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through the news articles, every headline a reminder of my fall, every comment a nail in my coffin. I put it away and leaned back. In the end, power had cost me everything: love, trust, family. I'd built my kingdom on secrets, and now it was nothing but ashes in the wind. I stood, turning away from the home I'd never enter again. As I walked down the street, the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving me in the darkness I'd made for myself. But somewhere, behind me, a child's laughter carried on the breeze. And maybe that was enough.